Hey, SkullKing Nation, thank you for listening to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. If you could right now, go ahead, whether you are on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, CastBox, wherever you are listening to this episode, if you could please hit that subscribe button. The more subscribers we get, the higher we move up in the rankings, the more people get to hear some awesome fantasy football goodness.
Welcome to the SkullKing Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrood and I will be your host tonight. We've got an exciting show for you. We're going to go over some news and notes. We are going to go through some listener mailbag questions. I've got a couple of players that are still available on Waiver-Wire that you should be looking at to possibly still pick up if you maybe didn't get the guys that you were looking for on the waivers this week. And then we're going to finish off the episode by doing a little preview of the Thursday night football game. Hope you guys are ready for a fun episode. So here we go.
Today's headlines.
Starting off with the news and notes. Looks like we start off with Vance McDonald, tight end for Pittsburgh, returned to a full practice on Wednesday. For me, this isn't totally fantasy relevant simply because it's hard to find fantasy relevance in the tight ends that play for Pittsburgh. Ben's never really used a tight end. Even when he had Heath Miller, it was kind of off and on. So nothing really big there. David Johnson was limited in practice Wednesday with a back injury. As far as we know, as long as he was just limited and still practicing, I don't see him missing the game coming up on Sunday. ESPN's Josina Anderson expects Leonard Fournette with his hamstring to play in Sunday's game against the Patriots. So for those of you who picked up TJ Yeldon, I would not fret yet. I still believe that that was a good pickup, that TJ Yeldon may still get a decent amount of work, especially if they maybe try to limit Fournette a little bit in this game. And with it being a hamstring injury, Leonard, Fournette could go out early. So knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But that's just the facts of soft tissue injuries like that. But if you have Yeldon, obviously, you want to wait until like last minute to find out whether or not he's going to play. But definitely, if you have Yeldon, I would hold on to him because it could the hamstring could pop up again and he could be out an extended period of time. So Aaron Rodgers with his knee would not commit to playing in Sunday's game with the Vikings. There have been so many rumors and whatnot about what's going on with his knee, whether there's actual ligament damage, torn. I have not seen an official report on what the actual prognosis is. If there's one out there, go ahead and send it into us so we can read it off or whatever. But what I would do is I would simply wait to see, check up right before game time on whether he's going to be active or not. If you have him, plan on starting him no matter what. Plan on starting him and then just keep an eye on the injury report right before game time. So if you don't have a backup, this would be a good time to get one just to see. DeAndre Hopkins was limited at Wednesday's practice with a foot issue. I don't think this is going to hold him out of the game on Sunday where they play the Titans. Last was I saw a stat last year. He averaged 93 yards a game against the Titans, so he should be in for a pretty good game this next week. Patriots running back Rex Burkhead sat out Wednesday's practice with a concussion. It looks like the Patriots may have no choice but to keep Sonny Michael active for this next week. I know they've been holding him out with limited practices with his own injury issues, but if Burkhead can't play, they may have to have him active just in case. Really, this means that James White's just going to get that much more work. So if you have James White, awesome. If Burkhead can't go, I really think that White's going to get a lot of work. So, minor news: Michael Thomas of the Saints did not practice on Wednesday with an illness. He should be fine. Titans injury report: Corey Davis was limited to due to a hamstring injury. This is not all that new. This is the same injury that he was dealing with last year. He missed a lot of time last season, a lot of games with hamstring injuries. So because of that, I've got a name in mind, actually a couple maybe that you might want to look at for this Titans game if you have Corey Davis. Marquise Goodwin with his thigh is not practicing Wednesday. There's another guy, I think Dante Pettis is looking to step into that role, the rookie who's also does a bunch of special teams. So if you have special team return yards and you have the space to maybe throw Pettis in there, you think he might get a fair share of the workload, that's an option as well. So Devontae Parker with his finger remained limited in Wednesday's practice, but let's be completely honest. Devontae Parker is, just falling desperately down that depth chart. It is Kenny Stills' receiving core right now. Coach Mike Vrabel said that barring a setback, Marcus Mariota with his injured elbow should be good to go for Week 2 against the Texans. Let's be honest, Mariota did not play all that well in the last game, so I don't know how much that's going to help for this game. We'll see. With Mariota in, there are a couple of people that I know he will be targeting in the passing game, and I really know that they're going to want. Well, Derrick Henry is a guy that they kind of drafted to be their running back. Dion Lewis is getting a whole lot of work, and could be in for another big workload in this next game. The Ravens have placed running back Kenneth Dixon on injured reserve and signed DeLance Turner to the active roster from the practice squad. This means that Buck Allen is going to be getting a lot of the work, pass down work, I think. I'm still confident in Alex Collins. He was having an okay game. It wasn't playing well, wasn't playing great. Really, the Ravens kept passing the ball. They didn't have to run it. They just kept passing it because they could. The Bills' defense was just god-awful. And then when Collins fumbled the ball, he got benched for it for a couple plays. But then, they were out of it. I mean, the Ravens were so far ahead at that point, they just brought in all the backups. And so it didn't even matter anymore. So I'm still good to go for Alex Collins in this game Thursday night against Cincinnati. I still think he'll have a solid game. In an interesting development, the Raiders have officially re-signed Martavis Bryant after releasing him 10 days ago. Honestly, he could play on this next Sunday in Week 2. The issue is that he could still be facing a season-long suspension. And Oakland's just not making a whole lot of sense to me right now, and I know it's not making a whole lot of sense to a lot of people. The defense honestly looked okay and the offense looked okay in that first game for the first half. After that, it kind of all fell apart. But obviously, I don't think Amari Cooper has really been really was not all that great in this last game, mind you. The Rams do have Peters and Talib as their two starting corners. That being said, even John Gruden in a report said that Amari Cooper has a ways to go. So I am not picking up Martavis Bryant. I'm not advising anyone to pick up Martavis Bryant. I think honestly, you just kind of stay away from that situation. The only person I advise anyone to pick up in that offense is Jared Cook, because obviously he is the only receiver that can catch the ball right now. So Deshaun Jackson on Wednesday was not practicing. Honestly, I think that Chris Godwin is a great pickup. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So Colts running back Marlon Mack was practicing today, being Wednesday. I'd say with the good week, he could make his season debut on Sunday in Washington. We will see how that goes. Right now, I'm not totally confident in the running game, any part of the running game for the Colts. Marlon Mack was not all that impressive last year when he ran the ball. Of course, it was his rookie year. So we'll kind of see how it goes this year now that he's got Andrew Luck as a quarterback to, kind of enhance the passing game a little bit, pull a little pressure off the run game. So for right now, I'm kind of avoiding that whole backfield and basically just sticking to Luck, Doyle, Ebron. I think was a good pickup this past week, and T.Y. Hilton. I really think that's about it in that offense. So. And Devontae Adams did not practice Wednesday with an undisclosed injury. I saw somewhere else, I believe it was actually a shoulder injury that he was already playing through in the last game. Said there was enough adrenaline that he really, it didn't matter to him. He was able to play through it. Kind of the same thing that Aaron Rodgers said about his knee Sunday night. So we'll see how that goes. I'm okay, with Adams. Still, he is, I believe, still the number one wide receiver in that offense, and that Cobb just got loose and was absolutely dangerous when he's healthy. But I still think that Adams is the top guy to own there. So as long as it says that he is active, I'm playing him. So all right, that's it for the news and notes. Next, we're going to go into a little section where I am going to talk about. Kind of go into some players that are still available on waivers that I think could still help you out for this week and down the line.
Waiver-Wire Madness.
So now that all the waiver stuff has gone through, there are still some people out there. The first guy that I want to talk about, I actually already mentioned him on here. It was Chris Godwin. Now, Godwin was kind of back and forth listed as the number 2/number 3 back and forth with Deshaun Jackson, basically all offseason and preseason. And even in this last game, he started off hot, 3 catches. He had 3 catches for about 41 yards and a touchdown. He did end up fumbling once, but recovered it. I think that Godwin, if Deshaun Jackson is out, could have a really big game. It is against Philly, who played pretty well against the pass, except for against Julio Jones. So I think that Godwin has the talent to be a really solid player this year. I had him picked as a sleeper early, so he is definitely a guy that I'd keep an eye on. If Deshaun Jackson can't play and you're in a deeper league looking for a flex position, Godwin's very obviously a pick that I think that would work really well for you. Another guy that I would look at picking up, he's not exactly what I would call a high ceiling. It's kind of a low ceiling type of player, but the thing about him is he is going to be the number 1 target in the offense, at least for a while. And that's Cole Beasley. Now, last year he struggled. He finished with what I want to say is 314 yards last season. However, the year before, he was at halfway through the season. He had more fantasy points than guys like Demaryius Thomas. He was even ahead of Jarvis Landry at one point. So he is going to get used. He's been a safety blanket the last, not so much last year, but the year before. He was the safety blanket for Dak Prescott. I think that's starting to show up again, especially since he doesn't have Jason Witten anymore. Cole Beasley, he's 11% owned. Going back to Godwin, I think he's 34% owned. So he's still widely available. But Beasley is only 11% owned. And so, again, in deeper leagues where you need a little bit of receiver help, you need flex play, I think that he is going to be the dump-off guy for Dak Prescott. And so he could, again, get a lot of work. Finished with 8 targets and 7 receptions for 73 yards in this last game. So definitely a guy to keep your eye on. The last one, the third guy that I think could be a big help to you, especially for all you Delaney Walker owners that had to put him the hopes of him carrying you to rest. I would look at Jonnu Smith. Now, Jonnu Smith is not a big name. He was drafted last season to basically kind of be the guy to take over after Delaney Walker finally retired and kind of ease him in. He had 3 targets, 1 catch for 12 yards in this last game. He hasn't put up a whole lot in his career at this point. Delaney Walker has just been the guy. And so this is a time when I think that Smith could get a lot of work in this game, especially if Mariota's back. He likes targeting the tight ends. And what we talked about earlier with the Chris Davis injury, because of Chris Davis, if he can't go, Mariota's going to want, again, that big target to throw to. Jonnu Smith is that guy. So he's definitely a guy that could put up some numbers this week, could be a little bit of a sleeper play, especially if you're looking at DFS. He could be a value guy to look at. And against Houston, who, although yes, it was against Gronk, the Houston Texans did give up 123 yards to tight ends last week. So, in Delaney Walker's absence, I really think that Jonnu Smith could break out this year and be a solid tight end for you. All right, so next we're going to get into the mailbag. Now, we didn't have a whole lot of questions this week on the mailbag. We only had a couple. But again, we're trying to keep these episodes kind of short for you guys. We don't want to make them too long, just so, not everyone has an hour-long commute like pretty much everyone in Seattle or everyone in LA. So we want to make sure that you've actually got the time to listen to these. So here we go. The first question, as a Gronk and Le'Veon Bell owner in a standard league, would you trade Gronk to acquire Connor and Ajayi or Shady? I own Lynch, Jamal Williams, Mack, Kerryon Johnson, and Bilal Powell. Here's the deal. For the most part, basically you're trading Connor, who would be and you're getting Ajayi. Gronk is normally like a second or third rounder, but he is going to be the top tight end as long as he is healthy. If you're getting 2 running backs, I would possibly consider that if someone is willing to take that. I think that if you gave up Gronk, I would go with Connor and Ajayi. And you could probably, because Ajayi, again, he's going to, for the most part, they're saying that he's going to get more carries. He's going to get more of the workload in Philadelphia. And Connor showed last week that he is an absolute stud. So if you can get those 2 and kind of stream your and stream your tight end, I think that's definitely, and I just gave you a name that you can stream. So that's definitely one thing you could do. Yeah, I think that you could do that to get Connor, and honestly, maybe even try, if you're feeling okay about it, try to move Le'Veon Bell. See if you can get something else for Le'Veon Bell, because there are people desperate enough to maybe willing to wait. If your team gets to the point where you need the help, maybe even getting rid of Lev Bell would be a way to go. So, let's pull up next question. Here we go. Should I trade Andrew Luck or Wilson? Oh, should I trade for Andrew Luck or Wilson? My quarterbacks are Matthew Stafford and Matty Ice. If you've got the stuff to use to trade for Wilson or Luck, you're probably, I would prefer Luck. I would prefer Wilson, honestly. Even with some of the losses that the Seahawks have taken in terms of some of the players around him, Wilson also has the legs, I think, a little bit better to be able to create. He still does have a couple of weapons to be able to use. Luck, again, we're still not totally sure what is going to happen with his shoulder. I'll be honest, I went all in on Luck this year as much as I could in my leagues. So I think you're probably better off in terms of how much you have to give up trying to trade for Andrew Luck. But yeah, if you could get one of those two instead of having to have Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan, yes, I think that you should do that. So Matt Ryan, his MVP year was a product of Kyle Shanahan, not so much Matthew Ryan. So that's where I would go with that one. Oh, sorry, that one was from Super Camario 86. All right, so on Sleeper. Again from Sleeper, Jonathan's dad says, I have Carson, Cohen, Crowder, Funchess, Kerryon Johnson, and Galladay on my bench. Are any of them droppable for the likes of Eckler, Disley, Allison, Jackson, Mike Williams, Godwin? Yeah. Well, no, on Funchess. I would drop Funchess for Godwin. Maybe Eckler. He's pretty deep. He says, I'm pretty deep at running back with Kamara, Hunt, Howard, and Henry. Yeah, you're pretty deep there. You're looking good there. Looking for a wide receiver or tight end. Starting wide receivers for this week are Adams, Aguilar, and Cooks. Yeah, I think if you could get Godwin, that would be a good way to go. You're set really at running back with Kamara, Howard, and Hunt. That's a solid three there. We've talked about kind of Henry's kind of a hold off on. We don't know what's going to happen, especially now that Deion Lewis is there. So yeah, if you could get a Godwin or maybe tight ends, maybe a Ben Watson is available, or like I said, Jonnu Smith, someone like that. That's definitely something to look at there. So. And I believe that's it for the mailbag. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Thursday night game. We're going to preview this a little bit. The Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. And in terms of the offense, the Baltimore Ravens, Flacco had a pretty good game on Thursday or on last Sunday. I wonder how much of that is just how bad the Bills' defense is. I think the Bills' defense may become what Cleveland used to be, and that's you always stream against Cleveland. Well, now it may be you always stream against Buffalo right now, or at least do it whenever you can. Their defense is good. In terms of Joe Flacco, I think that it could be this could be a good game to maybe start him as your quarterback 2 in a 2-quarterback league. But he's not a guy that I would start unless it's like a 20-team league and you have no other options. But I think that the wide receivers are kind of up in the air. The only one that I would really put a whole lot of stock in is Michael Crabtree. Then again, I'm not big on Michael Crabtree this year. The run game, I'm still big on Alex Collins. Like I said, I talked a little bit about this earlier about him. Just, it was a rough start. He got a touchdown, but fumbled the ball, got benched, and by then they were up by so much that they weren't going to bring their starters back in. So I think that, as long as he holds on to the ball, and I know he's had trouble with fumbles in his career, had the problem at Arkansas as well. But I think that Alex Collins is definitely a solid start for this week. The only reason I don't think I'm starting him in my league is because I've got a couple of guys that are just better than him. So, Alex Collins is a solid start. Deeper leagues, maybe look at Buck Allen for a flex. 14, 16-team leagues. Buck Allen could be an option for a flex position in a PPR league. So. Those are kind of the options I have there. Again, if you have the Baltimore Ravens defense, they're a pretty much must start. Moving over to the Cincinnati Bengals, Andy Dalton, he is not a guy that I would choose to play in this game against the Baltimore Ravens defense. That's just not a it's just not a smart matchup. There's some guys you'll play no matter what. Dalton is not one of those guys. So he is not, in my opinion, he's not the best guy to put out for this game. AJ Green, you're going to play him no matter what because Dalton's always going to target him. Anyone else in terms of receiving for the Bengals is a shot in the dark. John Ross had one reception, which just so happened to be a touchdown. I know that he's still kind of getting his legs back and still trying to stay healthy after, for the most part, having an injury-riddled career, not only last year but also at the University of Washington. So Tyler Eifert, I just don't trust. He can't seem to stay healthy either. Just, he may play, when he catches the ball, it's usually in the end zone. It's usually red zone is where he's used the most. He doesn't rack up a whole bunch of yards. Really, he's a red zone target. But again, his injury history, I always seem to stay away. I really think, again, the only receiving target I'm really excited about in this game is going to be AJ Green, just because he's an absolute beast. The running backs, Gio Bernard did not get a whole lot of timeshare. It's Joe Mixon in that backfield. I want to say Marvin Lewis talked about the fact that even just having 4 catches was a big thing for Mixon in this last game, and they are really happy about that kind of production, about him being more widely used all over in terms of running and catching the ball out of the backfield. So Mixon's a solid start. He's going to be a top 15 back overall this year, I believe. So he is definitely one to keep an eye on. He's a must start in this game. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And again, the only defense I'm only playing in this game is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. So there's our preview for the Thursday night game. And that's about all we've got for you tonight. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to the podcast. Again, please subscribe no matter what platform you're listening to us on. We'd love to get more subscribers, to move up those rankings, and to share with more people. So, again, thank you so much for listening tonight. This has been the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrud, and we'll talk to you guys again later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.